Thank you.
All right, committee, welcome to our first meeting of the 2022 budget session. I'll go ahead and call the House Judiciary Committee to order. Welcoming our new secretary, Carol Clark, and will you please call the roll?
Representative Crago. Representative Larson. Representative Oakley.
Here.
Representative Provenza.
Here.
Representative Rodriguez Williams. Vice Chair Washit.
Here.
Representative Yen.
Excused.
Representative Zwanitzer. And Chairman Olson.
Here.
Okay. 8 present, 1 excused.
Thank you, Carol. So I just want to start off with some, a few introductory things, folks, because it is our first meeting and of the session. So just kind of a friendly reminder. And then once I finish up with that, I'm going to turn things over to Carol, and she's got some introductory things for you as well to help keep us efficient and moving along during this budget session. So, and this is also a reminder, obviously, to our public as well, so that in case anyone missed the memo, we are streaming live. And you can join us live on the wildedge.gov website. You are strongly encouraged, if you would like to testify, to sign up in advance of the meeting. And if you're testifying online, if you're here in person, obviously, that functions a little differently. But in order to keep us moving efficiently, we would like to have those individuals use the testify button online and pre-register. When I move to public comment, just as a reminder, and if this is your first time testifying in front of the House Judiciary Committee, you'll need to state your name. And if you represent an organization or an entity, we need to know that before you start talking. Sometimes we get used to the same folks that come back over and over again, so we get a little less formal, but obviously, as a reminder for the record, we do need that information. I think that's probably about it for me, Carol.
I am Carol Clark, and I'm the secretary for the Judiciary Committee this year. I just wanted to let you know the coffee, hot water, snacks are through that door, and in your folder, you have a plastic sleeve, and in it, you'll find some absentee vote sheets, and on the other side is a committee protocol procedure. There's also a internship requests on salmon colored. We do have interns this year, so if you're interested in that, the person that does that is up in our office with us. You'll always have a small notebook for notes and pencils and the bills to be discussed in your folder. I always have extra of anything you might need, so just let me know. And I just keep a small jar of cough drops or hard candy in case that's needed. If each of you have an emergency contact sheet, if you please complete that and return it to me. And handouts regarding bills for the day will be passed out prior to the beginning of the meeting if I have them. As I clean up the meeting, if you've left any paperwork that has notes that appear to be of significance, I will put them together and I have a file with your name on it up in my office. So they'll be there. If there's anything else that's such as a cell phone or something like that, I will chase you down in the chambers and find you so I can get it back to you. And with this being a short session, the deadline for interim topics has already been set. It's March 4th and 4 p.m. And the forms for these will be available on the legislative website by February 18th. And our statutes are located in the computer room behind us if you need those. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Carol, and once again, welcome. Committee, any other comments from the committee or questions for Carol before we dive into the bills?
I'm happy to be here.
Representative Yan, thanks for joining us.
Mr. Chairman, I do want to apologize for being late. I did have a bill to present in Senate revenue, which passed. So I
Went
look
well.
forward
Good,
to seeing it hopefully in the House.
good. All right, well, we're glad you could join us. All right, we will take up House Bill 0070 first, digital identity protection. Committee, this bill comes to you from another committee I chair, the Select Committee on Blockchain, Financial Technology, and Digital Innovation Technology. But don't worry, it has very little to do with blockchain. It's actually very appropriate for this committee. It simply deals with criminal penalties. So we'll be definitely looking to Representatives Craigo and Representative Oakley to weigh in on this work from your blockchain committee. Essentially, we're dealing with a law called spoofing, and we put this on the books, was it 2 years ago? We put this on the books? Yeah, I think 2 or 3 years ago, we added this spoofing provision to Wyoming statute. And now we've come back and we're really doing two things in this bill committee. Number one is clarifying here that it is a misdemeanor. And number two, this is part of our broader efforts in the committee as one of the biggest projects our blockchain committee is working on is defining personal digital identity or digital identity within our statute. And you actually saw the very first bill that dealt with that during your general session committee, which you favorably passed out and the legislature put into law and the governor signed. Now we'll begin an effort of going through our laws and basically peppering statutes where personal digital identity appropriately fits, and here it most certainly does. Committee, that's really it. I put this one forward first on your list because it really is pretty straightforward, but I would definitely appreciate any insight from our attorneys who work in the criminal sphere of prosecution. And I would take any questions too. Thanks, committee. Vice Chairman Washington.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A question. This wouldn't prevent prosecution for other crimes that might flow from a spoofing, right? If the individual hijacked one's digital identity and then engaged in other forms of wire fraud or other types of criminal activity, that would still be prosecutable as a separate offense, correct?
Thank you. I would defer to my prosecutor, but my understanding is it just puts another tool in the tool belt of a prosecutor to choose from a plethora of offenses. Representative Oakley.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I mean, the answer is yes, certainly. There can always be different counts, and that's exactly what I thought, Representative, when I was reading it is, so it's a misdemeanor just to be taking, which this is what this is, just to be taking the identity. If you then use that and steal $10,000, then there's clearly, it could be attached like a felony theft or something. So I think it appears to me to be appropriate because this misdemeanor is just kind of in the doing of it. If something much bigger comes from it, then other statutes could be used to charge and recoup that damage, if you will.
All right. Let's go to the public comment. Carol, we had somebody sign up online. Which bill did they sign up for? Do we know?
No, I don't know. And as of yet, they're not an attendee. So
All
no one
right.
has become an attendee.
Well, let's just, if you're out there and you would like to testify on this bill, raise your little hand. And when we see your little hand, we'll make you an attendee. Otherwise, we'll assume you don't want any part of this bill. In the public, sparking any interest here. All right. Okay. All right. No little hands coming up. I'm just trying to buy time. Originally I had 3 bills slated for today. We're only going to hear 2, but and I'm not buying much time with this bill. All right. All right. We'll close public comment then. Committee,
Move the bill.
it's your pleasure. Moved by Vice Chairman Washit, seconded by Representative Oakley. Discussion on the bill? Any amendments to this little bill? Representative Craigo? All right. Ready to vote on the bill? All right. Carol, will you please do a roll call vote on House Bill 0070, digital identity protection?
Yes, I will. Representative Craigo. Representative Larson. Representative Oakley.
Aye.
Representative Provenza.
Aye.
Representative Rodriguez Williams. Vice Chair Washit.
Aye.
Representative Yen. Representative Zwanitzer. And Chairman Olson.
Aye.
9 ayes do pass.
All right, very good. Thank you, Carol. And once we get enough of these committee going into the next hopper out to the committee of the whole, I will of course work with you to try to disperse the work of the committee. I think it's good opportunity for committee members to help floor manage bills. So I'll let you know as we move into that realm in the next couple of days. All right, committee, let's move to the next bill. We have House Bill HB 0039, pre-application determination for licensing. This bill is sponsored by the Joint Judiciary Interim Committee. We worked on this over the interim. And in summary, just as a reminder, committee, what this bill is and what it does, it really codifies what we understand to be in large part a practice engaged by certain boards where they might take a phone call in advance on questions relative to someone who may later down the line apply for licensing. So we've really codified that process pretty loosely. It's a may option, and we have given the boards all the authority that they should need to craft any particular process through rules and regs that might best fit them. That is pretty much it. Committee, just as I guess as a summary and for the public out there, the genesis, if you hadn't followed us during the interim, the genesis behind at least the policy decision here is very simple. It's, it might be a lawyer or a doctor as maybe a good example where you're going to invest a lot of time in education. And when you start day one in law school, and what do? Representative Craigo, you look to your left, you look to your right, and two of the folks will be gone or something like that, or one. So investing all that time that you might be able to in your first couple of days of that of law school, as an example, you might be able to reach out to your board and figure out whether it's even a possibility for you to have a license rather than invest 3 years of law school and then a lengthy process of going through the application for licensing. And that's just one example. Of course, I'm only using it because I am a lawyer, but there are this would apply to equally to all licensing boards. With that, committee, we'll go ahead and move to public comment. Carol, I'm going to assume that our friend is signed up for this section. And yeah. What about in the room? Go ahead and let me know if you plan on testifying on this bill. All right. Well, come on up. Whoever wants to come first. And Kevin, I think you're our guy signed up online. So would you prefer to zoom in or all right. So you don't actually have to admit, Kevin. He's here. Go ahead. Sorry.
or somebody starts med school, but before they apply with us, they at least will say, am I wasting my time? Am I wasting my money? We don't usually get somebody coming out of high school saying, should I do pre-med or not? But so in that respect, this is a little bit, I think of a solution in search of a problem, but the way you've done it now, we can implement it, we can make it work. And so I'm here to answer questions if you have them, but otherwise appreciate the committee's work on it during the interim. And with that, I'll turn it over to my colleague from the Board of Nursing. Here.
Lori Hart from the Board of Nursing, Chairman Olson Committee. It again is something that we are asked commonly at the board is, is it worth my time to apply? Should I go to school to be a nurse because I had a DUI or I had a minor consuming? And this gives a way to give some more firm guidance. What we tell people at this point is there's no absolute bar to practice in Wyoming. And we have a number of individuals who've turned their lives around and who've made wonderful CNA and wonderful nurses. And the only danger that I can see to this bill is that we will sometimes have individuals who have had multiple felonies in the past 5 years. And we would likely tell them as they applied that they would not be eligible at this point. And we can't tell them when they would be eligible. So, I would say we probably see 4 or 5 of those a year who it would discourage them from going to school. Whereas if they'd gone to school, if 5 years had passed, we would give them a very different answer. So that is the only negative part to this. Something that we certainly could institute. It would require individuals to pay for 2 background checks. So it actually increases their cost of licensure. Again, one of the negatives. Thank you.
Committee? Questions? Vice Chairman Washit, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for either or both of you. If we didn't pass this law, would it change anything about your current practice?
Mr. Chairman, Representative, no, it would not.
And Mr. Chairman, Representative Washington, I would concur. We just do that. That's one nice thing about being a small state. When people call our office, they get answers, just about first call every time. So we pride ourselves on that, and we try to give those answers. And we're also very respectful though of our boards. And we say, look, I'm going to give you my best guess based upon what I know my board has done, but I'm not going to step on my board's toes. I respect their jurisdiction, their discretion, but here's what I've seen happen in now nearly 15 years. And so we try to give the best guidance we can regardless, and as quickly as we can.
Thank you, Kevin. My question is for the Board of Nursing. Given your hypothetical and the back and forth we just had. So in your hypothetical, you with the person who may have several felonies. If that person were to call now, I would assume you would almost say, would you say what you just said to us? Would you say, well, right now, probably not, but after you complete it, it's very likely. Just walk me through that, because if you can already do that now, and that's the statement of some effect that you might make, do you believe that under the bill, it would restrict you from making a statement of such nature where you're qualifying it as a, maybe not, maybe so?
I think through the Chairman Olson and committee, I think through the process of codifying this, it formalizes it to where I don't think we would feel comfortable giving the more anecdotal advice that we do now of these are the guidelines that we usually use if someone has not repeated that felony within 5 years, if they've made steps to improve their life, such as education, it is generally approved. So yes, I think it could change how we approach it.
Is there something we could do with the language? So we tried to address this. I don't know if you joined us during the interim, but we tried to address this exact issue during the interim, and we came up with a couple of things. But one is the language on page 3 regarding the binding effect of whatever you may say. I certainly appreciate your position, which is that if this was statutorily required, that now I may be hesitant to give an opinion in general, right, is really what I it's not that you'd be hesitant to give a wishy-washy opinion, but you may be hesitant to give an emphatical opinion because you don't want to be bound to it when you come back later and change your mind once you have the actual application, everything in front of you, I suppose. But do you feel like, does that give you enough leeway, that the non-binding effect language, or is there something more we could do to give you greater comfort?
Yeah, Chairman Olson and committee, I think the change in the language that's already been made has certainly made that process easier. As I reviewed how this would impact our licensees, that was really the only negative component that I could see to this. But again, that change in language, I think, does offer us more flexibility than we had with past iterations. Thank you.
Great. Okay.
And Mr. Chairman,
Please.
I'm not getting my microphone to work. Here we go now. Oh, we only get onesies, I think, yeah. And I would agree with Ms. Hart, is that by not making it binding, then you can say, you can put a little more nuance to it and you can make it more anecdotal. Whereas if you make it binding and now it becomes more of almost an order, and you have to, dot your i's and cross your t's and all those things, and prosecuting attorney is agreeing with me here. So yeah, it's exactly. So I think you've helped make it more flexible and more friendly, which again, is something we can do in a smaller state like this, where a larger state wouldn't be able to offer that service that way.
Right. Because our goal here is not to produce a bill that makes you do something that you wouldn't normally, engage in. We want you to be comfortable with the process, and obviously the goal as well isn't to turn more people away or to create legal issues for you. The goal is just simply to me, it's more of, because boards can and do already engage in this. For me, it's more of almost like an advertising effect to say that the process, because it is in statute, that it is completely well known, whereas I might just be taking my chance or word of mouth that, hey, if I call them in advance, I can get a little bit of information, versus it becomes a known process is how I see it.
Agreed, Mr. Chairman. And I would echo what Ms. Hart said, that our boards really take a great deal of pride in having somebody who had a problem in the past and be able to actually get them into practice and see them do a good job and sort of rebuild their life, rebuild what they've done. That's a real matter of pride. I've seen that in my board members repeatedly, that they're very happy to see that happen. So they don't want to be a bar. In fact, 2009 session, we actually took out of the statutes that a criminal conviction was a bar to licensure, period, the end. It had been previous to that, to be a physician. We pulled that out. And so they've used it as a tool. The way it's set up, yeah, it's advertising. It makes it clear that's what the policy of the state of Wyoming is. Kind of gives us support for doing it too. Where previously we've been doing it because we've been trying to be nice to people. But this gives us a little bit of legal support for what we're doing.
Good. Okay, good. Sorry, Representative Provenza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And in the fiscal note, there's a comment about having an online application form, and I'm wondering if there's perhaps appetite to put that up if this bill isn't passed, just given kind of the conversation we just had from the chairman, that advertising, or at least people knowing that it's a possibility. And so I'm wondering if that's something your board might be interested in doing.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Provenza, and I will tell you, we did put that fiscal note in because I'd actually crafted it at the point where it was going to be a binding on the board. We wanted to make sure then that was in our records, in our system, so if somebody did come back and apply, we would know exactly what was said that would be tied to them. Mm-hmm. And so at this stage, the way this is crafted, I'm not sure we'd need to wind up doing anything more than a very basic form, because everybody wants to do online forms. Nobody wants to do paper anymore, or almost nobody. And so with that, I think that's kind of up in the air. I'm not sure we'd need to do that. I'd take that up with the board and see what their thoughts are. But that was crafted more with that binding element at the time.
Sorry, I have to follow up on that. So the fiscal, if that's how the fiscal note was ran, shouldn't we revise it?
Mr.
Since
Chairman,
it is a May option now?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, at this point, I would say it's a May. And part of it is nothing comes free in the world of IT. And so just to pull up in front of the place and say, can we make a change like this? You're talking several $1,000s. So I knew I needed to put this in. But at this stage, probably if the bill doesn't go back to a binding effect, I think we could probably lose that and not have that fiscal note, not have a problem. Because I think we could make do with what tools we have in the toolbox now.
Okay, great. You were going to chime in. Go ahead.
I was just going to add to that for the Board of Nursing, we chose to not put a fiscal note with this because we do have an online system already. And so it would just fit into what we normally do in our licensing process.
Committee, anything else for the boards?
Thank you again to the committee. We appreciate what you did with the bill and listening to what our concerns were. So
Thank you.
very much.
We very much appreciate your input. I'm assuming there are no other boards then. Those are our boards.
Lindsay Simino with the Wyoming Counseling Association. We were not going to speak on this bill. We were just observing for details. I can tell you that my board does interpret the language as non-binding and appreciates that language that is in there and how it can be used for nuance. As far as the online form, as of right now, everything for the mental health licensing board is paper. And that is because of web servicing issues. Ideally, they would like to get their licensing process online, but I would like to let the committee know that is not something that is happening at this time, but would like to continue that in the future. So that is genuinely all that we have on this bill. We recognize that many of our practitioners do come from different backgrounds and the reason for codifying this. And that is all. I stand for questions. Just wanted to clarify that there was other professional associations here today. So
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Each day, I feel like paper becomes more and more antiquated.
Even
This is true. All right. Who else would like to testify on this bill? No? All right. Nobody else on Zoom, still just Kevin. I mean, technically. All right. With that, I will close public comment. Committee, what is your pleasure on this bill? Moved by Representative Yin. Seconded by Representative Provenza. All right. Committee, discussion on the bill. Oh, Vice Chairman Washington, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I mentioned during the interim, I'm not sure we really need to pass this bill. It sounds like the agencies and the boards are handling the requests that come in already in a non-bureaucratic process without anybody having to pay a fee to get a background check done and so forth. And the non-binding nature of the opinion, I don't know how reassuring that would be to an applicant to be told that your criminal history is not going to be a problem, but we'll have to see what the board says down the road. So I don't think the bill hurts anything, but I'm not sure it's necessary.
I think you just summarized what the board said too. It's not gonna hurt anything, but we already do it. So I don't know what else, other than, I think your point on the background check is probably the relevant point. There is an expense there.
Right.
To the applicant. Representative Lawson.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to say I agree, and he did a very good job of saying what I think. I'm going to be a no vote.
All right, already lost one committee bill today. All right. Anything else, committee? Nope. Representative Yan.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So I do think it's a good idea. We did hear from a couple boards and some of them do have this process kind of ad hoc in place. But I think it would be just useful in general to ensure that folks know that there is a process that they can do, which is not always the case. And so having this in statute helps ensure that even if we create a new board going forward, that may or may not have qualifications on criminal history, that those people that have been through the criminal process and have done their debt to society, repaid that debt, are still able to enter the workforce in some sort of skilled fashion, especially in Wyoming where we need lots of all kinds of workers. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, committee, I'll just say, I would think you should push this. I think you should move this bill forward. If your boards were testifying to us that they absolutely did not want the bill, that it hampered the way that they do business, that it was stepping on their toes or what have you, I would absolutely be with you saying that we shouldn't move forward. But over the interim, we engaged in a process to engage our boards and work with them to get a bill that I think works really well for them. I know that they're monitoring this bill, and I think that the reason why they're monitoring the bill is the worst case scenario when the may turns to a shall. And that's where I think your boards would have a strong opinion. I think the background check is extremely trivial and nominal. And I think what this does, I stated it during the public testimony, but I think what the bill does at the end of the day is it really is a mechanism of advertising saying, here are your options. We do this in Wyoming, like many, many states do. It's available to you. And, maybe we wouldn't even need this bill because maybe at some point the boards would more formalize their own process. But I think there's little harm that comes from it other than the expenditure of a background check. And I think there's a tremendous opportunity for a lot of good that can come from this bill. So I would just ask you to move it forward. And once again, if I have not heard from one single board that has that says, this is just completely unworkable. And if we were hearing that, I would be with you for those who have hesitation. I really would. I know, some of the other comments that I've received on this bill were questions of whether it makes it essentially mandatory to accept the license given certain things in a person's background, and it doesn't do that, right? So all that authority still rests with the boards as they currently do, and I think that's appropriate as well. So we're really not changing much. We're really not changing the status quo. You're just giving me something to do, I guess, on the floor.
So you're taking this bill, okay, good.
All right. That's enough. Go ahead and do a roll call vote, Carol, please, on House Bill 0039, pre-application determination for licensing. But do it as slow as you can.
Representative Grego. Representative Larson.
No.
Representative Oakley.
Aye.
Representative Presenza.
I,
Representative Rodriguez Williams. Vice Chair Washit.
Aye.
Representative Yen.
Aye.
Representative Zwanzer. And Chairman Olson.
Aye.
That would be 7 ayes, 2 noes, do pass.
Thank you. Good work, committee. You went through 2 bills really fast. I would have given you a third one. We almost had that third bill. Sorry, I'm just not going to let that go for a while. But I do know our hopper is filling up, committee. So we've got some good bills coming to us over the next couple of days. So you got some extra time now, and we are adjourned.
Can you